Good morning, friends. This is Bill MacDonald, the reading and writing doctor here. And today I'm just going to focus on one skill and concept for the extended essay portion. And it's mainly going to be the importance of brainstorming, planning, thinking about an idea that you're going to write before you write it. Because if we allow our students to just start going the second they read the question, then what's going to happen is they're going to write about the first thing that pops into their head. And unfortunately, whatever popped into their head, whatever idea they chose for their central idea, controlling idea or thesis, or if it was a dual question that asked for two ideas to zoom in. For example, in fourth grade, they said one time, write about your favorite place. You want to be as specific as possible. On a reading topic, they're going to ask about a specific place or a specific person, an event, or a certain character trait or experience or a certain problem. So it's important that you see that and decide, are they just asking me for one idea? Or are they asking me for a cause and effect idea in my central idea, my controlling idea or thesis, my idea about the topic? So I want to show you, especially those of you teachers who have signed up for the CREST online training. One of the most difficult things is writing an essay, which is up to 2,300 characters responding to a certain topic, a question that's being asked in terms of who, what, when, where, why, which, or how. So I want to show you, excuse me, I want to show you what all of you who signed up for the training are going to get. If you signed up for all 5 trainings, like a ton of you did, then you're going to be getting a hard copy of my 22-23 Advanced English Language Arts and Writing folders. And in this portion, I've adapted my little stick man to make sure that your students can do well on how to go from a 1 to a 2 in yellow to a 3 in green on the extended response, and then how to get the 2 points by bringing closure, by tying everything together and making sure that you have strong editing with the cups, capitalization, usage, punctuation, spelling, and sentence boundaries, and revising where you add, remove, replace, or move something around, okay? But I just want to focus today on the brainstorming part, or the central idea, the controlling idea statement, the thesis statement. And when you say statement, it means sentence. So there's this new invention called a period, where when you finish your thought that has a subject and a predicate, after brainstorming for ideas or an idea about the topic, then you're ready to go. So something that you might think about is, what is the question? The red light is, what is the question? And so if I go like this, you can, and then I open my mouth, you see a W, an O, and a W. So I want to teach you wow. The first wow right there is, what original words from the question can I use when I'm responding with my central controlling idea thesis? If you use all of the words, if you're just restating the question, every single time that you restate, that's known as repetition. And you can restate, you can teach restating if you have kids who struggle. But if you're telling every single kid in your classroom they have to restate the question word for word, that's going to be repetitious. That's not anything that's coming from their head. It's just writing the topic again. The reader already knows the topic. What they want to know is your student's idea or ideas about the topic. So yes, you can ask, what original words could I use from the question? And when you look at all of the possible answer choices that they gave for the extended responses, I looked at every single extended essay response in every single grade level and every single subject where you're going to get them in reading and social studies and science. And I noticed that in very few cases did they use very many original words from the topic, from the question. Why did they do that? Probably they wanted to set a good example to say, you know what other words could I use? In other words, are there some synonyms that I could use to express my idea or ideas about the topic? One of the things in development that used to be for expository, which an expository, an informative essay, in the case, because they ask you to explain in almost all of the topics, expository means to explain and express your ideas. Okay, so what you want to think about is one of the keywords for the best score in a 3 was well chosen ideas. So you might try to think, if the passage has 10 or 15 sentences that I could use to respond to the topic and choose that as my idea, then decide which idea that you can use that ties everything together. So if I was to put on a tie right now, you have to imagine that everything ties together, the T being the topic, the I being their idea, the central controlling idea or thesis, the E, the evidence that they use, the way that they explain it, why they choose, and you'll see that in the examples, you can just present the evidence by saying where it's at in the selection, the line or lines, the scene or scenes, the stanza or stanza, the sentence or sentences, the section or sections, the paragraph or paragraphs, or you can just quote the evidence with quotation marks. Either way is acceptable. Where is it with evidence? What or why is it with the answer with evidence in quotation marks? But I want to stay focused on this idea. So once you listen to yourself read the question, you've got to figure out, are they talking about a person, a place, an event, an experience, a problem, a character trait, anything that's reading related. And so I want to show you the concept of what I call GPS. And what does GPS mean? It means get pretty specific. So I don't want to just get specific when I'm developing, when I'm turning my yellow Y. Do I think this? I want to already be specific when I'm writing my idea. So the way I want to teach that concept today is with a puzzle. This is the entire world. So basically, every single person and place and event and problem, historical event, current events, every invention, everything that someone's done, every battle that's been fought, every animal that exists is in the world. But you can't talk about the whole world. So GPS, get pretty specific. Let's zoom into one country. This is the United States of America. Let's zoom in to one state. Let's zoom into one city. When they told my son Israel when he was in fourth grade, write about your favorite place, he didn't say a city, Alamo, where we live. He didn't say his house. He didn't say his backyard. He said a tree in his backyard. And so even though that's an expository based on a prompt, your kids are going to get asked about a certain place or a certain person or a certain event from a passage, not their own experiences, but somebody else's real or realistic or information about a person or an event. So the more you can zoom in, the better. That way, that becomes a very clear central idea, not vague, because the bigger the idea, the more vague it's likely to be. So how do you get one step further? You can say, oh, okay, well, let me focus on, I'll just use this bottom row here. We see the Statue of Liberty, we see the Alamo, and we see Epcot Center from Disney World, okay? Well, if they are sharing with your students about the Statue of Liberty in a selection, and they have a paired passage that talks about the Alamo, they're sometimes going to ask a question that connects those two passages. And it's sort of like saying, my right shoe is the passage about the Alamo, and my left shoe is the passage about the Statue of Liberty. And they're going to ask questions like, what is one similarity? How many? One idea between the concepts that were developed in the Statue of Liberty and the concepts that were developed in the Alamo. So if you say one thing that is similar, well, what comes to mind is freedom. The Statue of Liberty represents freedom, liberty, and the Alamo represents freedom and liberty as well. They wanted freedom from the control of the Mexican army or the Mexican government that were trying to basically dictate how they were going to live. What is one difference? In the Statue of Liberty, it's probably going to be talking more about welcoming and the excitement of a new life full of hope and a future. Whereas in the Alamo, the people were having to be willing to die for their freedom. Something that helped me GPS on Disney World, if the passage is about Disney World and there's a section about Epcot, think of Epcot as an acronym that stands for every person comes out tired. I can't talk about too many ideas in Epcot. I need to zoom in and say which place or which experience, which idea best represents the topic that was being asked, so that I can give E, the evidence, use examples with that evidence to explain and express my ideas. And finally, the S of ties is a specific supporting sentences that I can use that ties all of that together. And so be careful when you're brainstorming. And one of the reasons that our kids did well is because we brainstormed all the time as a class, several times, to get to the point where we were writing about 20 different ideas that would respond to the topic in each classroom. If I had 4 classrooms, I would continue that brainstorming sheet so that all 4 classrooms were contributing to the sheet, whatever the question was. So we had lots of ideas to pick from, and then every single student had to decide which idea they wanted so that they could use it to write about. So as you can see, what they're asking is, Here's an entire passage. What is your big idea that you want to use to respond? What is the central or controlling idea that will be the focus of whatever you write about? Or what is your thesis going to be? Thesis, my thesis. And as you see the acronym TIES there, there's that word thesis. So for expository, a thesis is the same concept. And you can see this right in the middle there. Everything has to be about that idea. It has to control everything, has to be the center of everything that you write about. So think about that when you're brainstorming, the concept of zooming in to respond to an idea. And I think that will really help create a good foundation and a start to your year. Spend a couple of weeks just teaching the concept of connecting the topic to their idea by brainstorming as a class, then in groups with partners, and then eventually they'll be able to brainstorm solo and still think outside the box, but be able to respond to the topic. Now, yes, if I have kids with limited writing experiences, I don't need them to be original or creative. Just find the easiest evidence that responds to the topic, and then think, what central idea, controlling idea, or thesis can I use that can tie in that evidence? That way, on the extended, I can at least have a good chance of getting a 1 or 2, because they'll see a thesis and they'll see an idea that's tied together, and hopefully they can use that evidence and make examples out of them that they can explain and express specifically GPS. So GPS, get pretty specific, not about just the development, but even your idea. God bless and take care.